Well, it's wet today, and I'm going to work in the polytunnel. Thank goodness I've got a polytunnel. It certainly helps this time of year. But I'm going to show you the pond because, well, it's for Christine really, because I know she gets a friendly chuckle out of seeing how it's coming along. And of course, it isn't. It's been so difficult to get this pond moved on. Well, good for swimming. We've got a constant trickle of water going down the plot. So that one's going to be another day. I was thinking the other day, the hanging baskets that I use for the strawberries, I don't think that I've bought a single one of them. It's a strange phenomena, but people buy hanging baskets ready-made, and when they finish with them, they throw them out. What I do need to recover is this terracotta well. Oh dear, I should never have left this outside. We've had some damage, but I am going to recover that. I was thinking, with the sun popping out now and then, I might be able to do the path, but I don't think so. So polytunnel is, strawberries are waiting. Let's get on. Well, it's decided to blow a hoolie outside, so I'll shut the polytunnel door and I can get on inside. If I remember rightly, last year when I was doing strawberries, there was a storm outside. So, I don't know, strange coincidence. So, this looks like hanging basket heaven. And as I said, I don't think I've bought perhaps one or two of these over the years. But the rest of them, out the back of people's houses at the end of the season, waiting for the dustman to pick them up, or just offered them because they're no longer required. So that's the way to collect hanging baskets, and they're not cheap things to buy. So I've got to work out what I want to use this year, and what I found was that baskets of this sort of size were just a bit small. They dried out a bit quick. And whilst I do my best to water the polytunnel regularly, there are occasions when I can't. And that seemed to be just a bit too small for my needs. So the smaller ones, they're going to one side. And by contrast, these very large ones, they're a bit of a challenge because when you fill them, the weight is really quite considerable. So there's a few places in the polytunnel that I can put that weight. I've got to be careful. If you put it onto a bar midway, it really applies some pressure. Whereas if you put it on one of these junctions, then that's really sound and they'll hold without any problem at all. So I can probably put one large one there. I can probably put a large one on this ridge bar, on this attachment that I've got. But when it comes to the middle areas of these bars, then I think probably the maximum that I can use is something like this. So I think what I'm going to do is use the medium ones and the large ones, and I'm just going to lay them out first in the polytunnel and see what they look like before I start filling them. Well, you probably saw it on the thumbnail on the front of the video, but I'm going to show it to you again. It's probably the biggest carrot I've ever grown in my life, and I was well chuffed with it. And it seems people find it a bit funny. I can't understand why, but here it is anyway. So that carrot is one of the few that I had left. Came out of that hole there, and I've got another one here. It's a bit split, but they've been fantastic in here. That one did have a little bit of damage to it, and I guess I'm going to need to be careful, but I'll clear this soil. I'm not going to add any particular nutrients to it because I want the carrots to go down. So I'm going to think carefully about how best to do that. This isn't sand. I'm never going to fill this with sand, but I do think perhaps if I make a big hole and put some fresh compost in, I might encourage downward growth. We'll see. Well, the rain is certainly coming down. I will recover all of these terracotta wells, and these are fantastic for holding the water inside the soil mass inside the basket, and they just, well, the water just seeps through them over time. Well, certainly brightened up. So this is the layout. These two over here, they haven't got particularly big hooks, so I need these butcher's hooks just to get them on the bars. We've got a really big fella on the back where I can put it on the ridge bar, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 along there. And this is a bit of a departure from what I've normally done, because of course this will be hanging over the tomatoes, but I figure the tomatoes don't get up that high for some considerable time, and if I really needed to, I could take these flat bottomed ones and pop them out on the patio area I've built this winter. So that's the plan. And 2, 4, 6, 8, which I can now get ready with the strawberries. So I have a bit of a dilemma now, and that is that I've shown all this before a year ago, so I don't want to bore people. So what I'm going to do is just go through quickly the method and then get on and get them all ready. So I use multi-purpose compost, and I use what I call the nuggets from horse manure, but I guess you could use a number of different things, and I have 1 part of that to 4 parts of the compost. I add a good helping of sulfate of potash, which is fantastic for high fruit yields and things like strawberries, and then all that gets mixed together, and that goes inside a polythene container. Now in an ideal world, these bags fit into the basket and you just roll them over the top, but the baskets I've chosen are that much bigger than the bags I've got, so I'm going to cut these and effectively make myself a watertight pool, and all the compost will go in there. The objective here is that in the heat of the polytunnel, and it gets really hot in the spring and summer, the water is actually held within the bag, and that makes sure that the strawberries have always got plenty of moisture. It's a fine line because it's very easy to overwater them, but I'm getting the hang of it. I'll get on. That's done it. So we've got 8 substantial sized baskets for hanging in the polytunnel, and I've put the terracotta reservoirs in the smaller ones, working on the basis that the bigger ones will obviously hold a bit more moisture. And I'm thinking that I'm going to put probably 4 to 5 plants in the bigger ones and 4 plants in the smaller ones, and that's going to come from these plants. And I'm going to use this larger leafed variety, which I want to say is called elegans, but I know that it's very prolific, and I know from last year's crop that I got much more fruit and it was larger. So I'm going to use those first, and then I'll move on down to the others, and we'll get those planted up and they just get tucked in, and then I'm going to leave this here so that they can get established. And I'm conscious that the damage that was done to the strawberries that were on the bench, because all the air around it was cold, I'm probably better off leaving them on the deck and letting them get established just in case we get any frosty nights, which I'm sure we will. I can just whip some fleece over the top of them then if I think it's going to be really bad. Well, that was a pretty busy session, but it feels good. Take a look. So that's the 8 baskets filled with those larger strawberry plants, and the plants turned out to be really good. Nice roots and really healthy plants. So just need to keep an eye on them now. I'll give them a good watering. And this was the best of the compost that came out of the tubs and trays that I was using to keep them in. And I've just taken all the small plants and popped them in there, and I'm sure they'll come on, and who knows, they could be next year's strawberries if I keep them in the shade and get the plant nice and vigorous. So I think that's me done for this afternoon. It's been great. It's going to be a bit of a challenge today. It's chucking it down, and I've got manure coming. But I'm not going to say no. I don't think I'm going to be able to bring it down to the bottom of the plot. I'm just going to make endless numbers of grooves in the ground. So I've got to come up with a plan. I've got an idea though. One thing I have learnt with all this rain is that this area that I'm clearing just pools water. And I think what I'm going to have to do is dig myself a trench down there so that the water runs off. So when I come to do that job, I think that's going to be on my agenda. It's worth knowing. So what to do? Well, these old builder bags, I've kept them for so long and not really knowing what to do with them. But I think today I'm going to take them to the top of the plot and use them to put the manure in rather than drag it all down during the rain. Well, I've spared you another exciting episode of moving manure, but the plan worked. The builder's bag just inside the gate, full up, and hopefully I'll get a day that's dry in the not too distant future, and then I can move it further on down and into the bins. That was a good solution and saved the plot from being super churned up. And I have to say, the water on here today is incredible. I can actually see a bit of a stream going down the path here. The pond, of course, is, well, overflowing, and the water down there is amazing. It's running down the side of that bed, and under the coop, down the side of the garlic, we've got a small stream, and of course where I normally have the lake, oh, just a little bit of a pool. And I've not yet spread that soil that I took away from in front of the coop door, but you can see how once I get that level, hopefully I'll be winning this water battle. Well, we'll see. Hopefully we'll be in drier times sooner rather than later. I do hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, click the subscribe button, click the like button, and if you want updates from me each time I upload a video, click the bell and select all. I do hope you have a great day. Diolch yn fawr.